Happy Wednesday, Broncos country. This is Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Bree Maces here with JR and Zach. Guys, how are you doing today? I know we've all gone through it this week, and I feel like Wednesday feels a lot like Friday. A lot of head coaching news to suss out. I feel like a member of crime scene investigation because I'm trying to understand exactly what's going on when there's really not a whole lot to parse out. But I want to know how you guys are feeling. We're going to get into a mailbag episode today. Lots of questions came through, and if you're watching over on Twitter, you can jump on over to YouTube or Mile High Sports Facebook to get your questions and comments highlighted. I just wanted to have this comment highlighted from Cal. Not sure if the stream will cut in sooner. They hate us. We don't hate you. We're just running late per usual. Good to see everybody here in the chat waiting for us. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I feel awesome. Taking a big weight off my shoulders professionally. Excited for something coming down the pike here, and excited for just this Broncos chaos. Like, it's kind of a mess. I understand if like other people aren't enjoying it, but just the total craziness of it all. No one knows anything. Everyone's making guesses, taking heat checks. I love it. It's a blast.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It like literally nobody knows anything. It's insane. It feels like we've eliminated like one candidate. Is what it feels like. Everybody else, it's like,
and four others are the favorites.
Yesterday. It's literally like when like they're like, oh yeah, Caldwell has a shot. Keep an eye on him, and then DeMeco Ryans, he's propelling. Don't count out Sean Payton though. And then also, it's just like all these different news coming through, and when you add it all up, we're in the exact same place we were before. I have no idea what's going on.
I'm finally ready though, Joey, now that you're talking about it. I'm not going to mess around with rankings or whatever. DeMeco Ryans is my top pick, has been for a while, and I don't want to talk about, or I don't want to have that conversation of where people are saying that, I'm gun shy over a first-time head coach, because I think at what the point that the Broncos are at, and I'm glad they're taking their time, but it's discounting the opportunity to have the person who I think maybe not deserves the job the most, but is able to really step up in that first time role. Yes, you may have been slighted in the past. You might have a little bit of hesitation given former first time head coaches, but I just want to get this off my chest because it's been ruminating and I've been thinking about it a lot. Divorce rates are sky high, right? So you go into a marriage and it's not going to work out. That happens, but you're not going to continue to go into opportunities and options when it's right in front of you what the right choice is. So I'm finally doing it. I'm making a very grand stand. DeMeco Ryans or bust. I'm done with the Harbaugh, Peyton hoopla. I just want the right person for the job. We're going to get into everything because I think there's a lot that's been on Broncos country's mind, and I want to have that conversation tonight. Like I already told y'all, there's a lot of questions that came through. I want to shout out to everyone for giving us all the great questions and making us do our job here at Let's Talk Broncos. So let's get into it. Guys, are you excited for today's episode?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get right into
I'm
it.
hyped after that.
Yeah, I mean, let's get right into it. Let's break down this confusing mess that is the Broncos coaching search.
Well, we're going to do our darndest. Denny asks, what are the rules about when a coach can be interviewed and hired? And if the coach is in the playoffs, can there be a handshake agreement, or can nothing be agreed upon until negotiated if their team is eliminated? There's a little bit more to that, but I want to hop into that. What I saw was that obviously they could have that second interview, but no new team can come in at this present time for, let's say, a DeMeco Ryans. It has to be someone who's already currently in contention. Zach, can you speak a little bit to what the rules are outlined for coaching hires this cycle?
Yeah, so you can't interview anymore until the guy is eliminated from contention. Once the completion of the wild card round is over, that is done until that team is eliminated. Or no, it's after the completion of the wild card round, it's open, and then after the start of the divisional round, it closes until they're eliminated. Same thing goes for hiring. It's a bummer. I think Denny raises a good point, what he said, and it got cut off by my screenshot to fit it into our graphic here. But he said it feels like this is unfair or it feels like it's punishing successful coaches with good teams. And I think he's dead on. I do think it punishes those coaches unfairly. I don't know how the how the NFL remedies that, because it'd be weird for Ryans to be the head coach of the Broncos while he's closing out this Niners run. Though I don't know, these coaches are adults. They can kind of have separate mind, or I don't know, separate, they can compartmentalize, I guess is what I'm looking for. But yeah, no more interviewing DeMeco until it's all done. I agree that it's unfair. He also asked if there could be a handshake agreement. I'm sure it has happened many times in the past where NFL teams have talked to figures when they weren't supposed to, but I bet the Broncos have probably even done that in the past. And I bet, I don't know, it's not unheard of that NFL teams agree to things when they're not supposed to, in, I don't know, a loose idea. That might already be done at this point, for all we know. And it's just not being reported on because they've done a good job throwing a lot of smoke out there.
Yeah.
Are you basically, sorry, Joey, are you just basically saying that, all of our hesitation and frustration over the slow process is maybe just a wait and see, and maybe we can take a step back and breathe with a sigh of relief that it could be coming soon?
Yeah, it's going to, who knows when that bomb is going to drop. It'll drop sometime, maybe soon, maybe it'll be a week and a half before we know. Neither would surprise me.
Joey.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Zach's earlier point about how that stuff definitely goes on behind closed doors. Like, guys, you never notice, like, 1 minute after free agency opens, we have like 3 signings. Like, well, they didn't negotiate the entire contract in that 1 minute. Now, are they supposed to? No, but that's what they do. As long as you just don't get caught, it is what it is. Like, the NFL definitely is doing it. They definitely are. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, that's fair. I like it. I like what we're up to. Frankie Abbott over at Frankie's Film says, "What's up, party people? Having a ton of fun over here as we try to dissect all the news and breaking news that's happening. Not a whole lot of breaking news, but I did want to thank all of you for not scheduling a hunting trip before the pod was able to go on today. So just want to throw that out there, that I appreciate you both for having the qualms about you to keep this show rolling." Christopher
and I
asks,
still don't believe that didn't happen. I'm sorry, really quick aside. I still don't believe that didn't happen. I know they declined it, but okay, because if it did happen and Sean Payton does want to coach for the Broncos, which I am not out, like, I'm not saying it's impossible right now. I think it probably didn't happen, but if that leaked and it makes the Broncos look bad, it makes Peyton look bad because he's making the Broncos look bad. If Duncan is his source, which I kind of expect it to be. And I think that might be why I was retracted so quickly, just to save face on all sides. Again, that's not what I think happened, but I do think it's possible.
It was interesting that neither an apology was issued or a recant of the situation. I love Joey's face. He's looking at us like we're crazy. Joey, hunting trip?
No, that I don't like. I think the reason why he took it away so fast is because he knew, like, the end of the day, I don't know. Like, that's the reason why he apologized so fast. I mean, everybody came out and was like, actually, I have a personal source with the Broncos that told me this is 1,000% not what happened.
Well, yeah, because it's embarrassing.
Yeah, but if it was Peyton's side...
Are you testing leaks at that point, though? Like, are you just seeing what's going to fly out there?
Duncan has nothing to do with the Broncos.
I don't trust any of the information out there.
Duncan has nothing to do with the Broncos, and if he's Sean Payton's source, and they're truly not he's not the head coach anymore, what does it hurt Sean Payton to throw some mud on the Broncos' name? Like, it doesn't. I feel like it
does if he wants the job. If he's interested in that job.
That's what I just said. It's clear. That's what I just said, though, is that if it's clear that the Broncos and Sean Payton aren't gonna be together anymore.
But that's not clear.
Ooh, it's getting a little more clear. It's gotten a lot more clear.
It's trending that way. I'd agree, but
Slam the table, Joey. Let him know.
Based on what? I guess based on what? I'm not trusting any of the reports right now. I think there's a lot of leak testing going on with ownership. I think that's why we're seeing so many conflicting reports. And there are a ton of conflicting reports. I'm putting a lot less stock in all the reports right now. I think DeMeco Ryans makes sense because they're slow playing this, and slow playing it really makes the most sense if you're looking at DeMeco Ryans. Like, if you really wanted Dan Quinn, like, you'd be starting to chase him down now, you think. Maybe you'd already have David Shaw or whoever else hired. So that's why I think it makes sense on that ground. But the reports, I don't trust any of the reports. I think it's a total smoke show right now.
I will say this. Last point. Sorry, Brie, I don't mean to cut you off.
You're not sorry.
If the Broncos really wanted Sean Payton, and Sean Payton really wanted the Broncos, this would be done right now. Like, it could be done.
Unless Walton was on a hunting trip.
The first domino to drop in this whole thing would be Sean Payton. That's what it would be. So, like, if that was the case, I think that Sean Payton, like, there's no point for all of this craziness. I don't see it. Like, you have people that are close to Sean Payton making the argument that the Broncos don't want me. You have people close to the Broncos saying the Broncos don't want Sean Payton anymore. It really, really looks like that. Like, it's a breakup to me.
And that's fair, but I also think the breakup probably started with this Jeff Duncan report. It was all going well until the Jeff Duncan report. And I think it's what caused that report. Was it Sean Payton lying? Was it the Broncos lying to Sean Payton saying, oh yeah, we can't do it this day because Rob Walton's hunting, when that really wasn't the reason why? And that's what set it off. I don't think Jeff Duncan what's your explanation for the Duncan report then?
Well, I love how Zach's like, I don't trust a bit of information that's out there, but this hunting trip, the most
exactly.
real quick. For anyone who's watching,
because the other thing is conflicting information about this guy's the favorite, that guy's the favorite. That's entirely different from a report that something happened. What is Jeff Duncan? Joey, why do you think that was reported otherwise?
Because he heard it from one person.
Who?
And then
Who?
Put it out
Who did
there,
this New Orleans guy hear it from? Who did the New Orleans guy hear it from?
Like, damn, I didn't want this to blow up. And then immediately went out there and started saying that it wasn't
Who did the
true.
New Orleans guy hear it from, you think? Who did the New Orleans beat reporter, who has been a Sean Payton leak source for a long time?
Okay, but I've also heard that Sean Payton hates him. I heard that 1,000 times too.
But Mike Smith has been shouted down by coaches forever too, and has been in.
No, I'm muting you both. Hold on, give me 1 second. We assume here, Let's Talk Broncos, that everyone who's watching has seen and read everything that we're talking about right here. So I just want to, Zach has unmuted himself. I forgot he had that capability after I did this. I'm only going to stop them so we can explain the hunting trip. Zach, can you walk through Duncan's report on Twitter and the following report by Mike Kliss so that everyone watching knows exactly what we're talking about, just real quick?
Yeah, well, the hunting report was that the interview was delayed because Rob Walton, one of the Broncos owners, wanted to be there for the interview, and he couldn't because he was on a hunting trip. The Broncos then loudly denied this story that makes them look bad. That's something not just NFL teams do, not just sports teams do, that all companies of all shapes and sizes and walks of life do. Sometimes stories come out that make them look bad and they go, no, that's not true. And it actually is true. And I think there's at least a possibility that could be the case here. And also, I think even if it is total bullshit, which it totally could be, wherever the lie originated tells you a lot. If the lie originated from Duncan's source, which I suspect to be Sean Payton, then maybe that's just their explanation for not being interested in the Broncos job. And it was just kind of like a BS reason. Maybe there's interest between both parties. And that's why they wanted to patch this up so quick. Sean Payton's like, yeah, it couldn't get patched up right now because Rob Walton's on a hunting trip, but it'll get done soon. And then that story comes out, makes everyone look bad. Payton gets mad at Duncan, who he told this information to, and Duncan's forced to retract it really quickly. I think that's one possible explanation. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it is a possible explanation in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. It's possible. I will give you that. It's possible. I do think this is at the end of the day, it's very minute.
Yeah, we're fine. It's whatever. We won't spiral as much as they want us to.
Yeah, we won't. We won't go down the hole. We won't do it.
I appreciate you both taking the opportunity to reflect on what was happening there. It was highly entertaining, but we got a show to do. If you're over on Twitter, please jump over to YouTube and Facebook so you can get questions and comments highlighted. Lots of people here in the chat. Really appreciate you. Want to move on to the question I was trying to ask before things went off the rails. Christopher asks, if DeMeco Ryans were to be hired by the Broncos, what changes can fans expect on the defensive side of the ball? Joey, I know you're excited to answer this question. Can you walk me through what you're expecting to see from Coach Evero to possibly a DeMeco Ryans led Broncos team?
Yeah, a big difference between that is like in the Fangio style defense that has taken over the entire NFL. Obviously, both defenses, I think you're going to have that too high shell a lot of the time. That too high shell is going to be in DeMeco's scheme. It's in Evero's. It was in Fangio's, and Fangio's defense is sweeping the NFL. A big difference there is Fangio's defensive line is more a gap and a half, right, up front, whereas DeMeco's is a single gap. We're attacking upfield. We're shooting gaps. We're slanting. We have like that. That's our style of defensive line. And a big reason they've been able to do that. And I hope that this defensive line coach comes with DeMeco Ryans, please, is Chris Kasarik. Am I saying that name right? Zach? Yeah, okay, cool. Bree?
Yeah, Chris Kasarik.
Chris Kasarik.
KRISKOUC something, I don't know.
Yeah. But they have been able to, so in that defensive scheme, right, with that defensive line, if you're single gapping, you want freaks on the defensive line that are going to be able to shoot and get upfield fast. And Chris Kasarik has done an unbelievable job. I mean, they just draft athletes. That's like the number one thing the 49ers have done up front is we are drafting athletes.
And sign them.
Yes. And sign them, yes. And Chris Kasarik's going to get those guys and develop them. And that's been a big portion of their defense. A lot of cover three, low blitz rate. Those are kind of the way I would describe DeMeco's scheme right there. And in that cover three, right, you're asking a lot of your I don't know. But yes, that's kind of the big differences in my opinion. Or not differences, but how I would explain DeMeco's scheme.
Yeah, and Kasarik could be a guy he brings. Next question, we'll get into coaching staff. Kasarik's a guy he could bring as DC, which would be extremely exciting. I wouldn't bank on it because Kasarik could stay in San Francisco maybe and be the DC there, but possibly could come with DeMeco, and that would be wildly exciting because you look at the vets they've brought in, like Arden Key, who had a really exciting season at LSU and then really dropped off the map, was like a mid-late round draft pick by the Raiders, didn't work out there, lands in San Francisco, and then he's awesome for a season. Mm-hmm. Drake Jackson, like an insane athlete at USC for several seasons, just like couldn't put it all together, goes to San Francisco. Oh, this guy looks like one of the best rookie pass rushers. Like I just, it's really cool what they do there. I'd love to see that. And to Joey's point, the big differences are going to be in the front seven. On the back end, it's very similar. It's a different style of split safety defense, but it's the basic tenants rather than being maybe cover two, or Fangio loves a lot of these quarter half looks, what are cover six or whatever. So that is half the field is a cover two look with one deep safety, and then the other half is like a cover four look with a deep safety and a deep corner. And it kind of looks like cover three. It's kind of a mix, of course, of cover two and cover four as well. That's a big Fangio deal. The DeMeco Ryans, Robert Saleh tree, where they're coming from, is quarters heavy. And it's not your typical brand of quarters either. It's a really aggressive, pinch down, squeeze the offense in, everything underneath, everyone fire downhill, fast, aggressive type of quarters defense. So those will be like the minor differences on the back end. I know Joey wants to add something there, but the primary differences will be to the front end. He touched on the defensive line, but as part of that defensive line stuff, when you don't have your defensive linemen just eating up space, which is kind of the Fangio model, that gap and a half, you're playing a lot of space and eating it up. With this Saleh style that's attacking upfield, that works in part because they've got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and Al Shire on the second level, cleaning everything up and looking awesome. The Broncos safety talent will help with that some, but linebacker, and I feel good about Singleton and I feel good about Jewell, but like Fred Warner and Greenlaw got all pro consideration. And Fred Warner's the best linebacker in the league. He was first team All-Pro. Greenlaw got All-Pro consideration. I think Singleton got like some votes, but you need some awesome linebackers to clean stuff up on the second level in this scheme, and I think that'd be another change to watch for.
I'm also curious, like with that, like, and also like obviously Warner, best middle linebacker in the league. He's asked to do a ton in coverage, but it's because he's a really, really, really good in coverage. I think you pronounce his name Hufanga. I'm terrible at names. He's the strong safety in that scheme. He is like doing a little at everything in that scheme. Still split safety, but he is the wild card in that defense. We don't really know what he's going to do. And
that shows the flexibility in the scheme.
Totally. But that's what I was just about to get to, Zach, was that I'm curious of how much of what we're seeing from the 49ers defense, and again, we've only seen DeMeco Ryans with the 49ers defense, is because of his personnel. Like, it could change, like how he runs his defense a little bit could change coming to the Broncos. So I think that's also important as well. Like Hufanga, he's meant to be able to do what he's doing in that scheme. You can ask so much from Warner because he's able to do so much. So I'm curious I don't think it's going to be a carbon copy is what I'd say.
Wonderful. Frankie Abbott says, Joey mentioning safeties, eyeball emojis 4 times. You're going to want to make sure that you're checking out Let's Talk Draft on Thursdays, where Joey and Frankie are able to break down all of those positional groups for you as we move towards the draft. Joey, when are safeties going to be up again?
We are talking about safeties tomorrow. Whoa. Everybody get ready. We're talking safeties. It's crazy. Caden Stewart is coming off an injury. Kareem Jackson took a little bit of a step back this year. I don't anticipate him being back. The Broncos could look at safety, and we'll get into it tomorrow. We're going to talk, I think it's 6 safeties. I'm going to study a couple that I haven't watched yet. Frankie sent me a nice little list today, which I was appreciative. I'm going to catch up on some of these guys, and I'm getting ready to talk about them tomorrow.
All right. Question that's not...
This is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Guys, not necessarily unrelated. Yes, Zach?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, back a second ago on Joey's point about just the adaptability in the scheme. One thing I loved seeing with DeMeco, or hearing about DeMeco rather, is the dialogue he has with his players and how strong it is, and how every coach, I think, says they have an open door policy, and DeMeco actually has one and works to find solutions with his players. Robert Mays talked about how when he was in San Francisco this year, he talked with some 49ers players, and how they talked about how they would have discussions with DeMeco where he'd be like, hey, such and such in the defense isn't really working for me. Like, this sort of coverage I'm not really comfortable with. And DeMeco might not, go with whatever they want to go with, but they'll like work together to find a solution. And I think that's something that's very appealing with him.
Joey, any follow up to that?
I'm good, Brie.
Awesome. So, unrelated, not related, kind of related. I wanted to preface this because I'm interested to understand what the idea is of defenses kind of showing some regression year over year. We were talking a little bit pre-show about the variability, and I know this is kind of what a lot of Broncos country is anticipating, but they anticipated that with Coach Evero, that he would come in and the defense would somehow deplete against what Fangio did. Thankfully for the players and all of us involved, Coach Evero actually allowed Fangio's defense to really stand in place. With DeMeco Ryans coming in, can we warn or kind of give an idea to Broncos country that although Coach Evero's defense was really up there in the ranks, it did show a little bit of regression towards the end of the season, and what to expect next year, regardless of who comes in at defensive coordinator?
Yes. I'm including this. I'm writing an edge piece right now. I think it's going to be ready tomorrow. We'll see when it publishes, but I'm made a really good dent in. I'm talking about that in there. Yes, I think that it could be expected, even if you do hire a really good defensive coach. If you're changing things, there could be a regression. There definitely could be a regression. Evero pushed all the right buttons this year to make it less of a big deal than I anticipated it would be. But yeah, that's expected, Brie. I think you hit the nail on the head. That is expected because you have to fit personnel to scheme. You have to do a bunch of different stuff. Everyone wants to say fit your scheme to personnel. And while that's true, sometimes it's really hard. Like, you need certain players doing certain things sometimes, like it's not just as easy as people make it sound. So yeah, there should be a regression, I would imagine, if it's a little less than Evero, like this edge class or this edge team, this edge unit last year, I think is tough. And without Evero ability to dial up generated pressures, you could definitely feel that. I could see you feel that down the road.
Yeah, and I also think just with the regression point, a big reason for that is defense is reliant on the performance of 11 players, like pretty equally. Yes, like cornerbacks have a bigger impact and edges players have a even bigger impact than that. But your edge guys aren't playing 100% of your snaps. Like they'll probably play like 80. Max Crosby played like 90% of the Raiders snaps this year and was an extreme outlier among the elite pass rushers.
That's crazy.
So it limits how many snaps they're impact, as opposed to a quarterback who plays every single snap, barring injury, and impacts the team to such a or the performance on his side of the ball to such a high degree. You just don't have that same thing on defense. I also think Evero, like while you saw it either stand in place or I'd even argue take a step forward from where it was under the final year of Fangio. I think that was because he brought in a lot of new ideas. They added new talent with DJ Jones, Randy Gregory, while he was healthy, was a huge part of why the Broncos defense was so dominant. Bradley Chubb, before they got rid of him, was a huge part of the reason why the defense was so dominant. Vic Fangio didn't really have him his last year, so that was an infusion of talent. Justin Simmons played at the highest level of his career. Like, some of that's Evero. I think some of that's also Simmons, and it's all symbiotic. There's reasons I think even last season's proof that it generally doesn't like stay even. If you want it to stay even, you at least have to put some resources into it. If you just let it stagnate, it's almost always going to decline. And I think you consider it's probably going to stagnate some because all of the resources are going to be poured into the offense. And you're changing scheme at least a little bit, especially in the front. I think there will be at least a slight step back.
I think I just wanted to preface that because it's been running rampant through my mind as anytime you make changes, you ruin the continuity of any system and any head coaching staff. So if you bring somebody new in like DeMeco Ryans, I know that in spite of any losses that may surmount, it's how you kind of focus and work through that. So I'm hoping to see that it at least stays in line with growth and potential and it doesn't kind of fall off the map entirely. That'll give you a really good insight of whether or not this was a terrible experiment or a great step in the right direction. Thank you both for humoring me with that question. We've already done Christopher's question, and thank you so much for it. We're going to move into the next one. Lindsay Z over on Twitter. I'm so happy to see a question from her. What would the coaching staff look like with each of the candidates? With Outen and Evero interviewing for other jobs, will the new head coach just bring in their own people, or will we move over our current coaching staff? This is an interesting question because I think my entire premise has been I really want to keep Coach Evero, Christian Parker. I've become very fond of them. Even Jerry Rosberg, he did a tremendous job in the last two games. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about what the coaching staff would look for, let's say, a Sean Payton, a DeMeco Ryans, and we'll work on those two right now because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes. Okay. So for DeMeco, it's Zach. Can I take one and you take the other? How does that sound? Which one do you want?
Yeah, I think that's great. Peyton's pretty easy. I think the other thing really quick I expect very little carryover with the staffs. From my understanding of the Evero situation, that is not going to last. And Christian Parker is the only one I'd expect to carry over. Maybe Marcus Dixon if you're lucky. But yeah, go with whichever one you want, and I'll pivot off of you, JR.
Okay, you go first, Zach. Take Sean Payton's defensive staff because that's honestly something I'm curious about. If you know anything there.
That's a great question. That one I might not have the answer for.
I don't have the answer.
Vic Fangio, maybe, but I think that would be so dicey. Would probably be the D coordinator there, and then I'd expect Pete Carmichael to maybe leave the Saints and come with Sean Payton. Outside of that, I'd look for Vic Lombardi. If Carmichael can't come, it'd probably be Lombardi just in a non-play calling role, which does concern me. But as long as he's not the play caller and as long as Sean Payton's overseeing all the offensive stuff, which I'd imagine he would be, I would hope he'd be able to keep Lombardi in line so it wouldn't be like a Charger situation. His staff is pretty easy to project. Dan Quinn, I'll throw out there really quick. I think it'd be Brian Schottenheimer at offensive coordinator, and then at defensive coordinator, a guy like Chris Richard or something, someone from that old Carroll 3 tree, I'd think. And Chris Richard was an up and comer, faded a bit, and back up now.
Chris Richard yells a lot. That's the one thing I do remember about Chris Richard. He was like pissed on the sideline all the time, like just mad. I also want to throw in Bevel as a name for offensive coordinator for Dan Quinn, right? I think that's a name that I've seen floated around out there a bit. But for DeMeco, it's hard. On offense, it's really tough. Like the easy connections to make are guys that I wouldn't really want to see with DeMeco Ryans. I like in a perfect world, I would want to put someone on the other side of the ball. I think DeMeco, hire your entire whoever you want. You're a defensive dude. You've proven you're a defensive genius. Go hire your defensive staff. We absolutely trust you there. Go do it, man. On the offensive staff, it's tough. Like the dots that you connect, they don't have enough experience for me as a play caller to entrust them or to pair with a rookie head coach. I want to see someone on that side of the ball that is a head coach. Honestly, the thing that makes the most sense to me is, maybe the ownership group steps in a little bit and is like, as long as you agree with the person that we want to put in place, DeMeco, here are a few options, maybe something like that. We would like to pair you with somebody. We have money. We can pay them. We could make them one of the highest paid offensive coordinators in the league. Like, we want to put someone that has former head coach experience, has already had success as an offensive coordinator there to put with you. That's what the way I would look. Jim Caldwell comes to mind. I listened to on the 33rd team website, I listened to a interview of Caldwell where he was speaking glowingly of DeMeco Ryans. So that's something to note. Frank Reich, like a lot of people want him as a head coach. I think he would be an awesome offensive coordinator. Then I think a big connection for the Broncos ownership group is David Shaw, right? Like that's someone that could be an offensive coordinator. He doesn't really have the NFL head coach experience, but it's easy to see how the ownership could try to push that on a new coach. We want this guy as our offensive coordinator. We like him a lot. He's ran a program for a really long time, but that's kind of what I see there. That's what I see on the offensive side.
My one thing is if they force an OC on the head coach, I worry about the relationship. And am I cool sacrificing that for like a David Shaw or a Jim Caldwell? I think is a fair question. Two people that I'd throw out as OCs for him. Maybe Frank Reich. He was a player for the Eagles, a linebacker for the Eagles, while Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator in Philly. So that makes a little sense. And then Darrell Bevel. Obviously, if they want to like do a little bit of a Russell Wilson thing, has been a Russell Wilson OC in the past, is currently the quarterback coach in Miami under Mike McDaniel, former offensive coordinator, or pass game coordinator, run game coordinator, whatever his title was, in San Francisco while DeMeco was there. So those would be two veteran play caller. Because to your point, Joey, there's not. Oh, the camera's flipped for me. To your point, Joey, the veteran play callers from the DeMeco tree are sparse, but I think those are two that might make sense.
Yeah, then when you go and hire a former head coach at offensive coordinator, it really puts the ball on their court where they can then use their connections to put a really good offensive staff together as a whole, right? Like, let's say they hire David Shaw. All of a sudden, maybe Greg Roman isn't an offensive coordinator anymore. Maybe he's a run game coordinator. Like, these are the different type of connections you can make if you put a former experienced play caller in place, I guess I would say.
To start the show, I had a question about whether or not it would be possible to impart what the ownership group wanted to see paired with DeMeco Ryans, but I have ultimately come to the conclusion that you need to trust your first-time head coach, as Joey so well put it, that you need to trust them to make the decisions there by hiring their staff, get the full experience of why you hired them in the first place, and run with that. So thank you both for breaking that down for me. Cal makes an interesting point here. I want to talk about Shaw real quick. The thing you got to understand about Shaw is that his name keeps getting repeated. It's interesting to note that it has been getting repeated, and I have gotten nothing but why I don't want him. No, thank you. Guys, can you talk to me a little bit about David Shaw real quick? I know that he has connections there to Condoleezza Rice, and then from there on, it kind of drops off as far as any connections. Could you see him being a part of the staff in general? And why is his name being brought up so frequently, with a lot of Broncos country being very hesitant to admit that?
Yeah, Zach, go ahead, man. I'll let you go first. You were messaging me about David Shaw today. So what are your thoughts on him?
I don't know, man. I don't see it with David Shaw. I think it's a Stanford thing. Like, to me, how I describe it, the more and more I've looked into it, because 5 years ago, he was coveted by the NFL. And I think there's a reason he's not anymore. And it's only the Broncos. Why might it only be the Broncos? The Stanford connection. It's clear the Penner group values that. It was rumored that's why Harbaugh was their favorite before he went back to Michigan. It was rumored the only reason they were interviewing Shaw was as a Harbaugh OC guy. It's also now been reported that they like Shaw because he knows Condoleezza Rice well, and they're kind of unfamiliar with the NFL world, and so they're leaning on Condoleezza Rice pretty hard. That worries me. If you are hiring, I know some jobs on this coaching staff are going to be filled because of relations. I'm not naive, but I would really hope this ownership group that has so few relationships in the NFL and has been doing this for so little time is not basing the head coaching hire on relationships. I think that would be a huge mistake. And it's not like David Shaw's this amazing candidate otherwise. The track record of college coaches jumping to the pro game is pretty rough. His resume at Stanford has gotten a lot worse in recent years as they had back-to-back 3-9 seasons, and he resigned. People will say, oh, that's because of the transfer portal and Stanford's tough academic rules. I think that's definitely a factor in the discussion, but David Shaw never was talent rich at Stanford. Don't get me wrong. He had some awesome players there in Luck and McCaffrey, but it wasn't like he was top 10 in talent composite. He had teams that were in the 40s or 30s that consistently played top 15 teams. And then he went to playing a bottom 30 team. Where are the 5-star prospects that Stanford lost to the transfer portal? I don't see them. They definitely didn't get the infusion of talent that a USC got, but they didn't have some crazy mass exodus either. David Shaw's offense is a little dated. It's fair to ask, especially when you look at the diminishing returns, has the game passed him by to some extent? And has he struggled to adapt? Davis Mills had a bit of a Justin Herbert thing where he looked a lot worse in college than he did in the pros. That reflects a little poorly on David Shaw to me, much like Justin Herbert's done at development, reflects poorly on Mario Cristobal.
Yeah. So here's my thing with him. Do I know do I really dislike David Shaw? That's not it whatsoever. I think all of his excuses are very valid. I do. The issue for me is that we haven't seen it in a while. Now, to Frankie's point, he said, what team has considered him in the last 5 years in their coaching cycle? Here's the issue, guys. We haven't seen it for a while. We haven't seen the good David Shaw successful led team for a bit. To me, it seems okay, you look at his track record, he could be a really good coach. The natural step for him would probably be to move to an offensive coordinator position in the NFL and then move on to head coach. He's not a really old guy. I think that's a possibility. I think that's the most natural step. It just seems like a big reach coming after multiple seasons of a losing record, giving him the keys then to be yeah, I know we haven't seen the successfully ran team, and but we're just going to give it all to those excuses. And here's the keys to our franchise. That just seems like a little bit of a reach to me. So I would think the natural step is offensive coordinator, succeeds there, excels. He then moves on to head coach. That's just the best way of going about it for me.
Well, it seems like all of LTB is on fire tonight. Specifically, Frankie over in the chat says, I watch Wisconsin be consistently better than Stanford, and they have similar recruiting issues, yet I don't see Jim Leonhard getting NFL head coaching offers. Frankie, appreciate it. I like it. Let's jump on over. Going to the next question here. And if you want to get in on the conversation, jump on over to my iSports YouTube or Facebook. Cal asks, if Peyton was just leading Denver along for leverage for a job he'd prefer elsewhere, who looks dumber now? The turnkey coach with nothing but time, or the football team currently trying to eat its own face? I didn't read this question all the way through prior to throwing this out there. Thank you so much for the question, Cal. It's interesting. My conspiracy theory tinfoil hat assumption when I heard the Sean Payton news is that somebody is trying to tell the other person in a roundabout fashion that they're either not interested or they already know that they're out of contention. It feels a lot like the Rodgers, Jim Harbaugh way of confronting I'm no longer interested. I'm going to go back. There are reasons to why these are framed the way that they are. It's an interesting concept, though. Are the Broncos eating their own face now that Sean Payton is no longer maybe their number one because this is taking so long? You guys said something very interesting to start this conversation. If they had their guy, they would have hired him already. That is my ultimate belief here, and I want you guys to tell me why that's not necessarily the case, and then answer Cal's question because I absolutely love it.
That would be Zach to take this question because I kind of agree with you there, Bert.
Why? Maybe he's getting ready to coach in the NFC Championship game. That would be a big reason why he might not be hired already.
Yes.
Another big reason why is maybe Rob Walton was on a hunting trip and it got delayed.
It's ridiculous.
And then they got embarrassed that story came out and they didn't, and they wanted to save some face on it. I'm not saying that did happen, but it is a possibility. Cal also requested that his full name be read on the show, which it's Cal Mantis Sapien, which I'll do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it just means a mantis person, which I think describes Cal well. But yeah, that would probably be the big reason. As for Cal's question, who looks dumber? Man, it's a good question. I'd say the Broncos look dumber right now just because all the reporting around them is so chaotic. Like there's just a million different things coming out. And I feel like to the average NFL fan, like if you're a Detroit Lions fan, I wonder if you're looking at this like, oh man, the Broncos don't know what they're doing. And I feel like Peyton gets more benefit of the doubt right now.
Mm-hmm. I also think here's the thing. If it was Sean Payton that was like, yeah, you know what, I don't want to go to the Broncos. And really, like I said this earlier, it's really hard to tell right now. I don't know. We're hearing two different stories, and it's just like multiple people yelling at each other on Twitter about who's right, is what it really looks like. But either way, or I guess the possibility of Sean Payton not wanting to go to the Broncos looks worse because Sean Payton can just go hit the next coaching cycle and he's going to get a job, and that team's going to have to trade less than they would this time because it's just one more year on his deal after this one. So the Broncos look worse, I think, no matter which way you turn it up. Like if the Broncos were like, we don't really want Sean Payton's like, cool, I'm going to go work for Fox this year. I'm going to come back this next coaching cycle and we'll see what happens. You know, like there's just not like a huge downside to Sean Payton not getting a job this year. I'll go take the Fox job. Like that's my fallback. It's impossible for Sean Payton to look bad right now.
Joe, you shook it out of the tree. The acorn is loose. It's not option A or B. It's C for all of us sitting around here, parsing out the information and trying to speculate upon which one of us looks foolish. We all have egg on our face, at least from this vantage point, Zach.
And I think at a point you reach such a low, like, can you be embarrassed? Like Sean Payton, had to leave coaching for a year because he got caught paying people to hurt other people. And then that movie or that story got turned into a comedy film where Sean Payton was played by Kevin James. And it was, I haven't seen it, but based on the reviews, a horrible movie. At a point, like, I don't know. I don't think this man feels shame anymore. So I think just by default, it's Denver is looks a little dumber, is a little more embarrassed.
I feel like you're trying to lead me to make a comment about 80 for Brady while we're at it. Cal, also,
that movie looks horrific, Bree. If you watch that, I will make fun of you, despite how much I love you.
I won't, just because I have a terrible time going to the movie theaters, and also I'm terrible at like getting to see new things. I'll watch the same thing over and over again. Cal also wanted to say, hey, the comment on the screen looks weird. Where is that from? If you would like to know where this comment is from, and if you would like to join that conversation over there, please go visit our Discord. There's a link. Zach's going to drop it in the chat so that all of you can join. He's going to put it over on Facebook and YouTube. And then you can go follow us on the LTB podcast on Twitter so you can see exactly where that comment originated and then make a few of your own, because we would love to talk some Broncos with all of you. Frankie says that Brady movie does look so bad. I agree. I'm not going to go see it. And I think that's where my love for Tom Brady ends. I may catch it when it comes out in 2 years from now streaming. Although the streaming after COVID has sped up so quickly that I now get to watch movies that I wouldn't go see in theaters and have to wait a year for them to make their run. So that's something positive that has come out of this for me, because movie theaters freak me out. I don't like the sound of people eating popcorn. I will put that out there.
The 80 for Brady movie trailer looks like the NFL dipping its toes into North Korea style propaganda. It is crazy how like extremely pro Super Bowl it is. It's like, oh my God, the Super Bowl, this is the best thing ever. Hot wing contest? Oh, whoa.
I do feel, though, that if there's any chance of possible that this movie ruins Brady for Bree, we force her to watch it. It's absolutely something we need to do. We need to dismantle that idea in Bree's brain one by one, and it might start with the movie.
It's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you right now. I've gotten multiple questions from people that if Tom Brady goes to the Raiders, will I buy a jersey? I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to think twice about it. I am not sorry. Let's go to our last question of the evening from our own
Drew Lock treatment.
JR Drafts. Is there anybody you wish the Broncos interviewed? And if so, who? Goodness, I think Jonathan Gannon, just because what he was able to do, what he's been able to do with the Eagles. I think that he's been able to stand up against some really tremendous offenses this season. And I think that he probably could have deserved a chance if the Broncos ownership group was going for a wide net here. Why didn't they go in that direction as well? I think he's experience to be able to take on a head coaching gig. Although I do think he gets an unfair amount of flack. I have been impressed with what he's been able to do with the elite defense over in Philly. Zach, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was a Gannon hater. I love that choice, Spree. I was a Gannon hater last year. I was like, hey, let's see this guy coach a good defense before we give him the head coaching job. Let's see him get through a season without his players calling for his firing before we give him a head coaching job. And he did that, and now he looks pretty great. I think he probably ends up taking the Houston job and is a dang good head coach. I definitely wish the Broncos gave him a look, especially because Ben reported last year he was the best interview. If that's true, like, give the guy who interviewed best last year another look. I do have to ask, though, before I answer, is this Joey's question of the day, or is this a different question of the question that just happens to be from Joey today?
Well, I didn't come up with the Joey's question of the day, so I think we're running with this now as Joey's question of the day.
Good, just had to know.
Cue the music. Cue the music. All right, now we can move it back to the question. Okay. I'd like to add on to my own thing there. I think the Broncos should have absolutely interviewed Mike Kafka. That's one that I wish they interviewed, even if they weren't going to hire him. I know it seemed like the Broncos were like, we want someone with experience. We're banning all first-time head coaches ever, except for DeMeco Ryans. And then DeMeco Ryans ends up being one of the lead candidates in this. Hey, guys, maybe there was other first-time head coaches I would have impressed. So Mike Kafka would have been one of them, I think, even just to pick his brain. get his idea on what he would do with this Broncos offense would be valuable. So I would definitely, and then honorable mention, Ben Johnson, another guy that I would like to throw out there. He ended up going back to Detroit. He's not going to take a job this year, but a guy I really, really respect.
That's the guy I was going to highlight. I've said Shane Steichen in the past, and he would be my go-to pick, but just so I'm not beating a dead horse or feeding a fed horse, rather, I would go with Ben Johnson. Made Jared Goff lead the NFL's #1 offense, and you see him do it in so many creative ways. Like if you told me what is Ben Johnson's philosophy, I don't think it's just one thing. I don't think he's from the McVay tree. I don't think he's from this tree or that tree. I think he's kind of like Andy Reid. I know Andy Reid's spread philosophy or whatever, but in the sense that he's just willing to grab from wherever and do whatever works for his offense. And I think that's really exciting, though I wouldn't compare him to Andy Reid because that is extremely lofty.
Okay, live on the podcast, everybody. I'm requesting a picture change of the Joey's question of the day. I love the lower graphic. Everything's fantastic with that. But this picture here of me.
Joey, send me photos. Do you have my phone number? Send me you have more photos of yourself than I do, believe it or not. Send me your favorites and we'll get an updated Joey's question of the day next week.
Amazing.
I like this photo, Joey. Joey, this photo was taken of you on your first radio appearance for the Fan Cave last year, and I appreciate the photo. I think it's fantastic, but we can change it for you. I'll make that. I will green light that choice, and I will allow it to happen.
I actually do have a great Joey photo right here. If we go for a minute longer,
do you remember
be able to show the mock-up?
We're doing live.
we're doing
live graphics. I've got a good option.
No,
in the chat for the first one. No, I'm just, the backstory of that photo is I was slandering everybody that took pictures in front of a mic and then made it their profile picture on Twitter. And then
my profile picture was me with a microphone, Joey. I think you're leaving that part out of it because we didn't know each other that well yet. We just sort of went this is a testing the ground. You were making fun of everyone who does that, and I no longer have a microphone in my profile picture because of you. So I just want you to know the impact you've had on my life here. Samuel Castro does not like the music choice. Rick Mendoza came into the chat and said the tune reminded me of the medieval time scene from The Cable Guy. That made me laugh pretty hard. Thank you for that. Samuel Castro says, okay, please find better music for Joey's question of the day. I agree.
I gotta go back to
go back to the drawing board.
I know I've got. Well, okay, we like this one, right?
No sirens. Go back to your graphic work and stop pressing those buttons.
Do we like this one?
No.
I will remove you from the show. I will do it right now, and I will kick you. I'll kick you off the screen.
We've got the new Joey's question of the day graphic almost ready. It's uploading. It's already made. We just need the internet to work, and it's ready. Bree, it's at the very bottom of the graphics. If you could click it, I will play our Joey's question of the day theme song, the best we've got right now.
I don't even have a question. I'll come up with
3,
one right now. Introduction.
2, 1.
This is ridiculous. I don't.
You asked
What's going on here on this podcast?
That's a good Joey right there.
You absolutely asked for it, and I'm sorry. I don't feel bad. Guys, any parting words? Can you tell everyone where they can find your stuff?
Yes, everybody, make sure you're following me on Twitter. I'm tweeting a lot. Follow me at JR Drafts. At JR Drafts. And then find my writing at Mile High Sports, the website, the app, wherever you consume your articles. You can find me if it's a Mile High Sports product. And then, so I'm writing an edge piece on how they performed this year and kind of what I think they need to fix up this next year. Keep an eye out for that. I'm going to finish that up right after I get off here immediately, ASAP. But Zach, where can they find your work, man?
Yeah, over at milehighsports.com. couple weeks back, I was intentional to shout out only my Twitter. That's no longer the case. Go over to milehighsports.com. There's going to be a whole lot more writing over there. It's going to be exciting. I'm in a good mood. You guys should be in a good mood too. There's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe for all of us. I'm so excited for the LTB gang. Big ups. Strap in, everybody. It's going to be a wild ride. Bree, where's all your exciting work coming?
Guys, I have to tell you, this is my favorite episode of the podcast so far.
I think
thank you for that.
It's a great one.
It's been a fun time. Let's see. Let's Talk Broncos comes to you Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Friday, I will not be on the show, but you will be able to hear me somewhere else. I will release that information shortly, but I want you to tune in there as well. I want you to support both the shows so much. We put in a ton of work into Let's Talk Broncos, but I'll be doing something different on Friday. So if you want to go ahead and catch me over there, I know you will miss me so much here, and I'll be back. I promise. Frankie says, leave likes and subscribe to the podcast, you heathens. And Cal wants everyone to refer to us as ZB, and J. I don't hate it. But I do want to let everyone know that you can hear me on the Fan Cave 1 to 2 p.m. on Mondays with Zach Seegers on Mile High Sports Radio. Every episode here with the Let's Talk Broncos podcast, and then special place over on Friday. Maybe I'll release it in the Discord prior to then. But promo tweet coming soon. You guys have a... It is the NFL Network, Frankie. I'm really sad that you put that out there.
Dare I say bigger than the NFL Network? Dare I say bigger than the NFL Network? Everyone, buy, I don't know what you need. Get ready. Buy every sort of communication streaming equipment you can, just so you're ready, just so you're covered for when this announcement drops. You don't want to be waiting in that Taylor Swift queue, making sure you get a Catch Breeze performance.
I haven't been able to shout out Coop all show, but Coop says unless you're in the Discord, then LTB never ends. The party never stops. Join the Discord. Come chat with us.
And hop in that Discord so you can give me recommendations of what Joey's question of the day's theme song should be. I will take care of that between now and Friday. If you want to submit your own music, I will take those submissions. Even if you want to just say, hey, Zach, play this, I'll do that. Right now, I love Colton Cooper's recommendation of the Halo music. I'm already downloading it, so we will get to hear that on Friday.
Who made this Discord's question of the day? So I feel like Zach should be asking me what my music should be. You know, hey, Joe, you got a recommendation for the picture? You know, I don't know when this turned into the community's question of the day. But anyways.
It's fine. It's really fine. What I want to know is if you can drop all of your questions about what size frames are being sold at Bed Bath & Beyond or Michael's or what have you. So we also dropped some music recommendations over there, and we have a ton of fun. It's just carryover from here, folks. We'll see you on Friday, but please be sure to make sure you're catching Joey and Frankie on Thursday. Tomorrow they'll be live at the same time. Same bat channel, same bat network. We'll see you guys.